Love and greetings to you. Welcome back. If you're here for the first time, then a very special welcome to you. This topic is in two parts, and so it's a good idea if you subscribe so that you're notified when the second part is available. The topic here is 10 signs your marriage is falling apart. This is part one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all 5. I'm going to mention them, and then I'm going to go back and discuss them. I know that's a little different, but I really want you to get the best of what it is that you actually need. Now, I always pray before I do these videos. In this case, I prayed especially for you, because if you think your marriage might be falling apart, then anything will help that is helpful. That is one of the things that is helpful. Let me start out by saying that our philosophy at the Marriage Foundation is very different. My name is Paul Friedman. I'm the founder. I used to be a divorce mediator, so I really know about marriages falling apart. I've seen them countless times in action when a couple is spreading out their assets to see who gets what and deciding what's going to happen to the kids. It's very painful. For as long as I was a divorce mediator, it was always painful. Now, in 2001, I know it's ancient history, right? It's 2024 now. In 2001, a couple asked me to help them save their marriage. And I thought, okay, let me try. I am an expert in communication. I was able to stabilize the room for virtually every couple that I had, help them with their emotional states and all of that. I thought, wow, if I could help people save their marriage, it would really be good for the kids. Honestly, I put kids ahead of you. You're an adult, but your kids are going to suffer if you lose your marriage. So I want to tell you something that happened when I was preparing for my very first couple. I discovered things about marriage that nobody knows. Well, I say nobody. Of course, there's some, but it's just not commonly known, and it's spectacular stuff. It's why I switched. I mean, being a divorce mediator is way more lucrative than this. But I had no choice but to help people save their marriages once I discovered that not only is it possible, but it's almost impossible not to be able to. And some people would say, and marriage experts would say, well, yeah, if you get a marriage in time. Well, I have to tell you that the people who take our courses, either men or women, we have 2 separate courses, they're where you are, or beyond. Over 50% of the people who take our courses are women whose husbands are having an affair. It's that bad. We save these marriages anyway. Why? Because our approach to marriage is about going back to why you got married in the first place and moving forward in a positive way to reintroduce those things that are what make a difference in a marriage. You got married, and you're not going to realize this, except you'll realize that what I'm saying is true. You got married to be happy, to be happier. That's the bottom line. But if you go to marriage counseling, if you read books, if you watch other videos, all you're going to hear about are, I've got this problem, what do I do? Here's what you do. We don't come from there at the Marriage Foundation. And it's been a quarter century that we've been doing this, saving thousands of people, thousands of marriages, and totally turning them around. So I want you to hear these signs just so you have a confirmation of what's going on in your marriage, but hear it as, okay, now it's time for me alone, because I discovered this is an important part, is you alone can transform your marriage. You don't need your spouse's help. Usually, there's no way, if it's falling apart, for your spouse to want to help you too. So first I'm going to tell you what the 5 are. Number 1, no or almost no physical intimacy. Now in our intake forms, we talk about that. Number 2, you're fighting almost everything is a fight. Everything. Doesn't matter who said what or why, it turns into a fight. Number 3, you're starting to feel like roommates. Now all these don't all tie together. They're just very strong reasons. Number 4, your spouse, and probably you, prefer spending time with friends or relatives or the kids. Number 5, your spouse is always annoying you, or you're always annoying them. Now let's get into each one of these. Hopefully by now you have already subscribed. Hopefully by now you realize how important this video is going to be for you. So go ahead and like the video so others will hear about it. And let's get into this. Number 1, no or almost no physical intimacy. As I started to say, when people sign up for the course, they fill out, it's a little bit of a survey, but it's also an intake form. So our counselors who will read the form will know what's going on with you. And one of the questions is, are you sharing your bedroom? Are you living under the same roof as first, but then are you sharing a bedroom? Because we want to know how to help you the most. So if you're already not sharing a bedroom, if you're only having intercourse on anniversaries or birthdays and like that, then you should know that your marriage is falling apart. Why? Why is that important? Well, what does marriage mean? Marriage means union. It's describing a connection between primarily you as souls. This is where the term soulmate comes from. It doesn't come from a greeting card company. So you connect first as souls. This connection is vitally important. But because we have bodies and minds, thus emotions and physicality, we also need to connect there also. It works together. And if you've already gone to the point of where the connection is disconnecting so much, and trust me, we get people who have not had sex in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We still can help save that marriage, but know that it's falling apart. You got married for the connection, to be connected, because it brings happiness. That connection is love. It's a union. It's about love. It is love. You need to have that connection physically too. Now, some people, not many, choose to not have sex in their marriage. Very advanced people, in my opinion, and they still have that definite, defined love, that connection. They're usually religious people, but that's when usually that happens. Or if it's not possible, maybe one of you is physiologically incapable, and of course loyalty overrides the necessity. But in most cases, this is a way of knowing your marriage is falling apart. Number 2, fighting over almost everything. Now, it's unfortunate, but in our world, Western psychology has taken over all of the education around marriage. It used to be that was primarily a spiritual domain, and if you were having problems with your marriage, you would go to your pastor, your rabbi, your priest, your imam, and you would talk to them, and they would remind you of love and all that. And that was better. Now, the world has grown and advanced, and there's too much science, so much so that people imagine that Western psychology is scientific, but it's not. As a kid, we used to call it, our teachers told us, it was a soft science, meaning it's not scientific at all. It's not like gravity, it's not cause and effect. It's psychological, based on studies that people come up with. Okay, here's what I want to discover with my study, so I'm going to gear everything towards that. It was created by an atheist, Western psychology. The father of Western psychology is Sigmund Freud. He didn't believe in God. So he didn't believe in the soul. So Western psychologists to this day call love an abstract thought. An abstract, meaning it has no tangibility. However, the truth is, and I didn't have to discover this when I started doing my research into marriage, the truth is that love, real love, is not an emotion. He was right in a way, because it's not of the mind. Love is not of the mind. Love is of you, the soul. Proof of this is the experience that you have when you look at your kids sleeping, or you look at your husband sleeping, or your wife sleeping. Your heart opens up, right? Your mind doesn't open up, your heart opens up. It brings tears to your eyes sometimes. You feel so much love. Nothing's going on with the mind. It's here. And what we're not taught, and yet it's the truth, is that the mind, because of what it actually is, it's just a computer, it's material, cannot handle love. It can't wrap its arms around love, so it distracts you. It goes, oh yeah, well, don't forget, you have to do this, you have to do that, so you don't dwell in this love, right? So fighting almost everything means you're in your minds. You're not in your hearts. And so if you're in your mind, then these little things matter. And they take on great importance to you, but to your mind. Because really, when you're feeling love, think about this, because it's happened, and you're having this deep love, and your spouse happens to say something that's totally off the wall, totally irrelevant. Maybe it even is important. Maybe they're talking about something that has impact, but you're in love, you don't even care, right? But you do care if you're wrapped up in your mind. So arguing all the time means you're wrapped up in your mind, you're hypercritical, hypersensitive, and good chances that your marriage will slowly disintegrate because of that. Number 3, you feel like roommates. Again, these are not all associated, they're different, and in the next 5, they're even more not necessarily associated. So when you're feeling like roommates, it means that the thrill is gone, to quote B.B. King. The thrill is gone. You don't have that feeling. And it's not their fault. It's not your fault. You're not missing anything except the education. But the reality is, because you don't have that union, that connection, that joyful connection of the soul, your marriage, because it could be hard. You know, marriage has 2 primary parts to it. It's a spiritual path that you take. You're taking a spiritual path with your soulmate, and in a spiritual path, there's 2 main parts to it. One is you're learning how to love unconditionally. That's part of a spiritual path. That's the whole gist of what a spiritual path is, to find God, that all-encompassing, all-pervading love. That's part of it. But the other part is getting control over the mind, which means in order for that to work, you got to be challenged. So what's happening is now you're in a enclosed space called your marriage. I call it the sacred space of marriage, because that's how you're supposed to be within it. But you didn't know that. Don't blame yourself. You weren't educated. So instead of soulmates, you're feeling more like cellmates, and everything they do bothers you, and everything you do bothers them. And when you're roommates, it's because you've become so accepting of that, and who cares? And you mind your P's and Q's, you try to be nice, they try to be nice, but the thrill is gone. Number 4, your spouse prefers spending time with their friends. This is pretty obvious, isn't it? I mean, when you're in love, you just really want to be all the time with that person you love, 24/7. Do you get on each other's nerves? Maybe occasionally when you forget why you're there, but for the most part, it's heavenly. And that's what marriage is meant to be. And that's where we want to bring you back to, is that heavenly state. You know, they say marriages are made in heaven, and we come to earth, and we treat each other like hell and ruin them. And that's what's going on. Okay, the last one for this part, remember there's a second part, so definitely subscribe if you haven't yet. They're always annoying you, right? And again, this is the problem, that you have become overfamiliar with each other. You no longer put up with their stuff. You're no longer friendly. They're just annoying you. And you're annoying them. And yeah, that's a strong sign. Now, the Marriage Foundation is a wonderful institution that I actually began when a fellow divorce mediator wrote out a check for $1,000 and said, Paul, you need to get this out there. This is good stuff. We both spoke at Second Saturday, which was a support group for people who are going through a divorce. And then I started speaking about saving marriages. What a difference. What a difference. And we're a foundation, nonprofit, and now we're training counselors again. So if you have an interest, believe it or not, even though your marriage, come on, you weren't doing this search if you didn't feel your marriage was falling apart. You may qualify by your own desire, your own character, to become a TMF marriage counselor. We don't want Western psychological backgrounds necessarily. You could have it. It's good because you know how to sit and work with people, but it's not a necessity. And we have that training. So again, I'm Paul Friedman. I founded the Marriage Foundation. I'm very glad that you came by. And stay tuned for part 2. If a week or so has passed by, it's already available. So go to the dashboard and look for it. And if you'd like to leave a comment or ask a question of me, go ahead. Usually I say go to our website and click on Ask a Counselor, and you could speak to one of our counselors. But clearly, you're on the verge, and we want to help you. So, but either way, if you leave a comment, I'll answer you right in the comments. If you ask a counselor, trust me, we're so fussy about who becomes a counselor. You'll get a great answer. And also, when you go to our website, you could download the top 10 do's and don'ts for marriage. I wish you the best. I'm Paul Friedman. God bless you. Thank you for stopping by. Take care.